Hey, it's Tandy with Alaska Homestead Academy, and I want to welcome you to our Joel Salatin live interview clips. These are a couple of the questions that were asked by Alaska Homestead Academy members during our live Q&A that we had recently. So if you're interested in hearing the rest of this, or if you would like to know more about Alaska Homestead Academy, just go to alaskahomesteadacademy.com. In the meantime, enjoy his answers to these questions that are pertinent to Alaskans trying to live off the land. If you were just starting now and you had 1 acre of land, that's it, 1 acre, and there's no option of expanding, you just need to make do with that 1 acre. And I have to put the Alaska spin on it. So you've got 1 acre and you've got a really short growing season. What would you do? How would you set that up?
Okay, so I'd certainly want to. I mean, your first thing is to try to feed yourself is what you can. Now, you in Alaska, you're probably not going to grow bananas and pineapples, so just go ahead and take that stuff off the table, and say, well, what can we grow, and make a list of what you can grow, and it can be not even things you like, just scattergram all the things you can grow, and then mark off all the stuff you don't like to eat, and circle the ones that are your favorites that you like to eat. I mean, do you like potatoes? Do you like cabbage? Do you like, and so first of all, feed yourself, and then um and 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 maximize the stuff that you like to eat so you can start, supplanting your grocery store thing. So that's on the plant side, including, blackberries, raspberries, apples and things like that. Another really critical factor, I'm borrowing this from Beth and Sean Dougherty of the Independent Homestead, because when I heard them say it a couple years ago, it just struck me as, one of those things that, oh, why didn't I think of that? Um, and so the first animal I'm interested in that 1 acre, I'm interested in chickens. Chickens are the most, they're easy keepers, they're child friendly, they don't take very, big expensive corrals, and even if they get out, probably your neighbor's not going to shoot them. Um, they kind of hang around, and they're so multi-purpose. I mean, they eat bugs, they eat your kitchen scraps, they scratch, and goodness, and they lay eggs. So this is ongoing. That's the beauty of them. They don't. It's not a butcher day and then you try to hang on to it the rest of the year. They actually lay all the time. So um, so chickens would be number one, and number two would be um, a couple of pigs. And this is from Sharon and Beth Doherty. A couple of pigs, and they made the observation that one of the most critical elements in very small scale homesteading or farming is a source of compost. We You desperately need compost. You need compost in your garden. You need compost, around your fruit trees, and many of us don't have a good source of compost. To get compost, though, you have to have a spot. You have to have a collection point. You've got to have something um, that that you can fork, that you can shovel, um, and so the pigs on deep bedding, and anybody that knows me knows that I'm a fanatic on deep bedding. You can keep animals in a building or a pen or something, hygienically and aesthetically and aromatically, positively. You can do all those things with deep bedding. And and when I say deep bedding, I mean at least 12 inches, preferably 24 and even 36. And if you know us, our barn, we go to 48 inches. The cows are standing up. I mean, their back ends rub the rafters of the barn. Um, but the deeper it is, the more functional it is. And so they advise keeping a couple of pigs just just for the not only to eat the pork, but also to give you a place, a pen where you are generating the nitrogen and the carbon that's generating the compost that you can use for your, your other activities. 1 acre is not going to be enough for a cow. I mean, you could keep a cow. It might not be enough for a goat. It might be enough strategically. It might be enough for a sheep, and you want to milk a sheep, you can. But the larger animals, and certainly then, so I think the chicken and a couple of pigs, and then the chicken for eggs, and then certainly chickens for meat, broilers, and some turkeys. The smaller poultry for meat is kind of a no brainer. So I'd start with layers. Uh, Probably do a couple of pigs, and then add meat chickens and turkeys. Turkeys would be my last one. And if I could, and if you like duck eggs, ducks are fantastic. They're very hardy and they don't scratch. So in a homestead situation where you're just trying to, eat bugs and slugs and junk and not scratch, the Indian runner duck is really a good one. For that's the old standby for doubling up with gardens. We have khaki Campbells; they're the best layers if you want eggs, and that would be something that you could run under fruit trees through a garden, that sort of thing, and the ducks don't scratch. So there's an advantage in waterfowl. The only thing about ducks is when you're done with them, they're really hard to get ready to process because it's almost impossible to pluck a duck, and and so they're difficult that way. But ducks, I think, have a real place on a very small acreage like that as well.
Yeah, I'm Lael. This is my brother Jonathan. Um, I'm not really sure how to word this question, but basically the one of the problems with long winters is when you're keeping animals year round, like they only can graze for like 1/3 of the year. And I just got sheep and I'm trying to think long term ways to deal with having to feed them so much hay. And I'm just wondering if you have any ideas for making it cheaper or saving money or for feeding animals year round. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So the whole so let me start kind of broad picture. Alaska gets the same amount of sunlight as we do in Virginia. All right. So it's not like we get all the light and you don't get the light. You get the same amount of sunlight that we get in Virginia. The difference is that your daylight is concentrated to a smaller portion of the season. So when you're getting, at June 21, the longest day of the year, where we get on that day, we might get, let's just say, uh, 13 or 14 hours of daylight, you get 22. So you're getting the equivalent daylight. You're getting 2 days worth of our daylight almost in one day, which means things grow faster. If I made a chart here and January through December and charted our grass growth on a monthly basis and charted that, it would look real different than yours would have a much higher spike. Okay. Where I'm going is this. Um, the whole thrust of our grazing management is how do we end the season, the growing season, with as much grass on the ground as possible. Now, I know you get snow, correct? And but the snow does not come before the grass is green, and then it turns, then it kind of, you get some frost, it starts getting colder, and eventually you get snow. But it's not, the snow doesn't normally come until whatever, like a month after the grass quits growing. Are you with me? Because there's a time there. And so are you moving the sheep every day to a new paddock?
No, not at this point. There's
Okay. All right. So you need to move those sheep every day. How many sheep do you have?
well, yeah, there's only 4 and they wouldn't be able to eat the size of fencing I have in one day, so Mm,
You,
I'm using the Premier One electric fencing.
yeah, you,
So
what, why can't you move them every day?
I also don't have enough space to move them every day, so yeah.
Um, well, how much space do you have?
We pretty much have like 1 acre somewhere around there.
Okay. Well, those 4 sheep, if you have, if you have, 400 sheep day grass, that acre will support 400. If you have 400 sheep day grass, that would be equivalent to about 80. Okay. And in a season, you should grow probably 1,600 sheep days on that acre. All right. So if you go out there with 400 sheep days per acre and you have 4 sheep, you need 1/100th of an acre per day.
Hmm.
1/100th of an acre. Well, what's an acre is about 5,000 square yards. So 1/100th of it would be 50 square yards. So imagine something 10 yards by 5 yards. Okay. That would be enough for one day. And that would give you, enough rest so that by the time you get around to it, here's where I'm going with this. You start as soon as the grass gets greened up. You give them this little paddock. This isn't about how much land you have. It's how you're apportioning it to them. So you can either give them that whole acre and they just kind of eat what they want and they just walk around and just, have their salad, have their buffet, or you can confine them to very, very small spots and move them like imagine a quilt, the squares on a quilt, and you're moving them every day. And what happens then, as the season progresses, you are creating a grass bank out here ahead of them, so that when the grass quits growing, you have, let's just say, half of that acreage is stockpiled. We call it a stockpile out ahead of them. And suddenly you're able to go all the way to deep snow. I've watched sheep, cows eat through a foot of snow. All right. And so the snow hits the grass holds up, and you can go through some pretty deep snow with the sheep well into the winter, um, if you don't let them just willy-nilly graze it all down. So you will have to feed some hay, but if you can drop your hay by half, that's a game changer. Okay. I mean, here, the average farmer feeds hay for 120 days a year. and we feed hay for 40 days a year. So yes, we still feed some hay, but we feed a third the hay that normal people feed, and we're running 3 times as many animals per acre. But we move them every day so that the whole season, the whole grazing plan is, can we push that grass inventory, standing grass inventory out ahead so that we finish the season, the growing season, with grass out ahead of them. Now, with that few sheep, with 4 sheep, you very possibly, rather than the premier netting, you very possibly would want to go to something physical, like a great big box on wheels. Again, I'm not seeing your grass, but I know around here with 4 sheep, if you made some sort of a physical box on wheels, that would be something, I don't know, 12 feet by 20 feet, that you could just pull along, twice a day. That very possibly would handle your sheep just fine, and you'd end the season with a huge stockpile of grass ahead of them.
Yeah, thanks. That's something to think about. Yeah, I'd have to figure out a different fencing method because the netting would be too big. But
I
Yeah,
never thought about
yeah,
it that way either.
you're dealing with your paddock sizes are way too big. But I'm telling you, well, let me get the calculator out here. If you have, I mean, we have plenty of places that are giving us 300 cow days per year, and roughly a sheep day is 1/7 of that. So times 7 be 2,100. So if we take 2,100 and divide it by 365, according to my calculator, you ought to be able to not buy a single bit of hay and keep 5.7 sheep per year on your acre without a single bale of hay. Now, you'll probably make some hay, maybe you'll go out there with a scythe or a BCS, a BCS mower of some sort, and maybe you just rake it up and you just rake it up loose with 4 sheep. You shouldn't need a whole lot, but again, you're getting the same amount of sun that we get, it's just compressed. So I think the math works, it makes sense. And don't whine about Alaska, figure out how to get those sheep moved every day. And I've seen some amazing physical corrals like this on big, like, like little trailer tires, something. And in fact, we have a big a duck shelter like this. It's got 2 pneumatic tires on the back that are stationary, that don't swivel, and then 2 on the front that can swivel 360 degrees, and you can just turn that thing and move it around everywhere you want to. And it's really slick. I mean, even a 10-year-old kid can move that thing. And now you'll probably have something a little bigger for the sheep, but if you made something, out of light aluminum conduit, maybe, or very light metal with brace trusses in it, so you could have something 12 feet wide, 20 feet long, and 4 wheels. Yeah, you might be surprised how easy that'll work. I even tried to think up one time. I called it the Yugo, for sheep, Yugo, or a Lamborghini. You can have a Lamborghini, and I thought about having 3 sides solid where the sheep couldn't put their heads through, but then have one long end where they'd have slats so they could put their heads through, and they would actually push it forward. They would actually just be in there, and as they graze, they just push it forward. We kind of had that with a ram we had for the sheep. We called it the Rambler, and the ram just moved it around literally by himself. He just moved it around. It was a, you know, it was a box, 12 feet by 12 feet, plenty big enough for a ram, and he just moved it around himself. It was like it looked like one of those artificial intelligence lawnmowers, you know, or a vacuum cleaner that just moves around in your house. It was pretty crazy. We thought about making one with a, you know, for a cow, like a milk cow, you know, we'd call it the ox box. And she could eat off of one end and just keep pushing it forward and move it that way. You know, so look, there are places for the electric fence. There are also places for physical. And I think at your scale with what you're trying to do, literally a portable, extremely lightweight physical corral on wheels is actually going to be a better bet for you. You can just go out there and give it a tug, and it'll just pull right along.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Could she throw some chickens in there with it?
Absolutely. Yeah, put a nest box on the side and let it carry some chickens. Put a little you know, put a piece of nursery shade cloth on the top for shade protection, and so, you know, a predator would have trouble getting in. Yeah, those kinds of symbiotic multi-species deals are fantastic.